Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 156. I have not left my house in a couple days because I am horribly sunburnt. It's going away a little bit. Katrina and I and a friend of mine went to a cosplay event that was out of doors. Kat convinced me to dress up with her. Also, it was very easy because she was Ramona Flowers, and and she had like the shirt and the sweat, what is it, the sweatbands, the wristband things, so that I could be Scott Pilgrim, and it was also our 3-year anniversary. So I was like, okay, I'm not a costuming guy, but for her the world. So we went there, and it was out of doors, and it was fun. It was windy, and then I got home, and I felt my arm, and I was like, oh, I am like I'm completely red. Okay, I was actually gonna like record a video for the side channel, and I was like, I don't want to be on camera this red. I don't want to look that messed up. So I was like, I don't want to record myself until I don't look like disfigured. That's a little bit of an exaggeration for being sunburned, but top of my head burnt, my scalp, my arms, and my face. Awesome. So I'm dealing with that, and I haven't gone outside because I don't want to exacerbate it anymore. And I don't want to leave the house after dark because I'm a sleepy guy and I'm tired. Speaking of... Okay, so a lot of stuff happened. We didn't have any questions. Excuse me. We didn't have any questions last time. So I'm just going to jump in, and I'm okay with that because goddamn... So this was Evo weekend. I'm recording this a day later. I was going to record on Sunday, but I figured, you know what? I might as well wait for Evo to be done. But before that, I would like to talk about some other stuff, namely some stuff that we watched, beginning with Miami Connection. So remember how last week I talked about Hard Ticket to Hawaii. Hard Ticket to Hawaii. And that is like a sort of infamous funny bad movie. Miami Connection is in the same vein. It comes from sort of the same 80s era. And it is probably... It was popularized by Red Letter Media's Best of the Worst. It's another kind of all-time classic from that show. I remember watching that episode of theirs years ago, and I didn't really remember much from the movie itself. So I was able to go into this with a mostly fresh eyes, and this movie is awesome. So first of all, it is completely free on YouTube, so you can just pull it up and watch it. It's not terribly long, and it's just sort of like a non-stop roller coaster of what? Okay, what is... It's interesting because in many ways, it's actually very competent. It's just the decisions that they're making are strange. This was the vanity project of one guy. His name was Y.K. Kim. I'm not sure about his background, but he appears to be some sort of Taekwondo martial artist. I believe he's Korean. He's South Korean. And he clearly has... let me pull up the IMDb on this. Because I want to know who was the Miami Connection. I want to know what else he did specifically. So he was a co-director. He was a co-writer. He was a star. He is the main, kind of the main character of the movie. He's the biggest guy on the cover. This incredible airbrushed cover. What else? I want to see what else he did on it. Writing credits. Yeah, then the cast. Who else was on the crew? All right. He produced the movie. So that's always good. So we've got writer, director, producer, and star. We've got like the big four of Vanity Project. He also did casting. Well, that makes sense. He was a producer. That looks like the extent of his involvement. And he seems like a guy who... He is clearly some kind of... I'm assuming he's an immigrant because he doesn't speak... He speaks with this very thick accent, and his line deliveries are sort of strange. Like, he's not exactly sure how... Like, he knows the words he has to say, but he doesn't, like, know how to enunciate. I don't know. It's kind of funny and charming, especially because he is the main character of the movie, and it's like he can barely speak the language that he's talking in. This movie is the closest thing to a Final Fight movie that you will ever get. That's how I would describe it. It is an action martial arts movie that just has sort of this like non-stop, more and more shit just keeps getting added to it. The basic premise is YK Kim is the lead singer? No, he's the leader of this band. They are a band of martial artists. They're they're a band of Taekwondo martial artists / musicians, and they train and perform together. And they're called Dragon Sound. And they're in town, they're in Miami, and they're playing at this club, and all of their music sounds like something that would be in a PSA. It's like this super upbeat, like, friends forever, we stick together, something so through thick and thin. It's super catchy. It's great. It's like, who's the composer again? Hang on. John McCallum. Okay. So he wrote, does he have anything else? He was the composer for Surf Nazis Must Die. Alright. He's still getting work. What the hell? His most recent movie was in 2021. He has 2 upcoming things that he's worked on. So nothing that I reckon. Future Shock. They also watched that on Best of the Worst. That's so strange. Surf Nazi. What the fuck is Surf Nazis Must Die? That's a little kid with a swastika on his face. When the son of a gun-wielding woman is murdered by neo-Nazi surf punks in the post-apocalyptic future. Okay, hang on. I'm going to process that for a second. Alright. His mama hunts them down for some bloodthirsty revenge. That sounds awesome. This sounds great. This is a great poster. Does that Nazi have a robotic crab claw? Let's see the tagline. The beaches have become battlefields. The waves are a war zone. Oh, it's a trauma picture. Awesome. Anyway, right. So they're in this band, and then it's a very standard kind of like nothing crazy, nothing too complicated. The whitest member of the band is... Oh yeah, they're also all supposed to be college students, which is really funny. And they all look like very grown adults. The whitest member of the band is dating this girl who's the sister of a gang leader of this like narcotics smuggling gang, and they don't like that. So so Dragon Sound, our protagonists, will just intermittently get into like gigantic multi-man brawls where they're just fighting off like 20 guys in relatively well choreographed fight scenes. Like, you can tell that whoever was in charge of this was pretty knowledgeable about martial arts and pretty good at choreography. The action is actually decent. It is clearly choreographed, and it's very silly. Like, you're not getting like The Raid, right? You're not getting like the hallway fight from Old Boy. You're getting like some pretty choreographed looking, almost dance like in the way that it goes about. Very safe, like, stage choreography, but like fun and kind of flashy and silly. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this narcotics gang is related to a violent biker gang, and they also work with the local chapter of the Miami Ninja. So it's so just to recap, the movie is about a band of mixed a diverse group, mixed race of um taekwondo taekwondo practicing musicians fighting drug cartels, biker gangs, and ninjas in Miami. It's awesome. It just kind of like, it'll just bring up random plot lines, like the one black guy, I think his name is Jim. He just all of a sudden gets a letter about like his dad who went missing, and his missing dad becomes like a plot line that just pops up like a couple times throughout the film, because I'm assuming the scriptwriter, I'm assuming YK Kim was like, oh, I gotta have a scene about that now. It's awesome. It is wonderfully charming. There's a lot of just ridiculous line reads, and you can tell the script is bad in the sense that, like, when characters say their dialogue, you can see it on paper, right? Like, I can see how someone who isn't an amazing dialogue writer, dialogician, I don't know, is there a term for that? Could put this on paper and think, yeah, no, this is good. Like, this is acceptable. But then when you hear it actually spoken, it's super stilted and weird. Let's see. Can we get any quotes? Can we get any quotes from this movie? There's gotta be several. Let's see. So when Jim gets the thing about his missing father, that the what is it, like, who was in the military, and he's trying to like find where his dad is now, and they're like, no news. For some reason he gets a letter that they said no news. YK Kim's character says, I didn't know you had a father. I thought we were all orphans. Which is just like a thing that's thrown in there. And then he like Jim very dramatically walks towards the camera. And mind you, he is a very dark looking black man, right? He looks very black. And I say that because the next line he says is, my mother was Korean and my father was Black American. She gave me this picture when she was real sick. I was only 9 years old. And the whole movie is just dialogue like that. Here's an exchange. So, Mark, how do you feel about putting some board breaking into the act? Mark says, sure, why not? We could write another Taekwondo song, and after Tom does one of his guitar solos, we could all break boards. Jack could do a drum solo. How about it, Jack? Jack says, love to help you write that song, John, but there's no way I'm going to break any boards in that club. I don't even want us to play there anymore. John says, why? Because that other band jumped us the other night? And Jack says, yeah, because of Jeff, too. So there's John, Jack, and Jeff, and you got to keep them all straight. And Jim. John, Jack, Jim, and Jeff. And Jane, who is the fucking girl that he's dating. Okay, this is like Peter Parker levels of ridiculous. Like fucking MJ. And then Jack replies, yeah, because of Jeff, too. He's in there every night with his damn gang, selling that stupid cocaine. It's great. I would recommend it. Go check it out. I haven't even touched on like half of the hilarious moments from this movie. Like, I don't want to spoil it. It's just hilarious. It's a classic. It's a classic. It gets a 9 out of 10 on the Cellar scale. Next up, I want to talk about the Old Dark House from 1938. Sorry, 1932. So we went to this really nifty place that is in San Francisco called Amoeba Records. Now, you might expect that they are a music store, but that's not all. You would be wrong. Amoeba Records is just a sort of general... Obviously, they have a huge selection of music, but it is a general used media store with some great prices on a lot of stuff. And I really liked looking through... It's this massive... It's almost like 2 gigantic ballrooms. It's just this big-ass building in San Francisco. All one floor, just this huge chamber. And then a little side thing for like the movies. So they've got games, they've got used games, they've got a ton of CDs and vinyl records, and they have a big movie selection. And I might have mentioned this before, but I am a big sucker. I have a big soft spot for classic sci-fi and horror movies. That's always been, since I was a kid, I was always really into that stuff. And they have a big selection of that. I kind of wanted to buy everything, but I don't have that kind of money. Hey, except to my Patreon. Patreon.com/Taigen Moon. So I ended up buying a couple... I ended up technically buying 57 films in total, because later we went to a different used media store, which was mostly books, but they had like a DVD selection, and I found like this gigantic case. It's 50 sci-fi classics mega pack. It's got such titles as The Alpha Incident, Attack of the Monsters, Blood Tide, starring James Earl Jones, and even The White Pongo, which they call me, actually. They call me the White Pongo. I got from Amoeba Records. If you're listening to this podcast and that sounds interesting to you, totally check them out. Go to Amoeba if you ever visit San Francisco. It's quite cool. A lot of neat stuff for cheap. We found Freddy Got Fingered for $3. I got The Old Dark House, the classic 1932 black and white Boris Karloff horror film, directed by James Whale, who was the same person who directed Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, and The Bride of Frankenstein. So, classic, pretty important horror director, horror and science fiction director. And The Old Dark House is not as widely talked about because there isn't any particular like super iconic character from it. But I was just curious about it. I've heard about it. It has a neat painted cover. I love old movie posters that are all painted up. And I decided to like, hey, Kat's always putting on her bullshit for me to watch, he says after forcing her through 2 parts of JoJo. Maybe it would be fun to bring over this movie and we could watch it together. Because it's like a classic film that might interest her, that might be more interesting to her. So we put it on, and it's actually just a really good movie. It's actually just a genuinely very cool, enjoyable, slow burn suspense film. So The Old Dark House stars Boris Karloff, who very humorously, the movie opens with a title, basically like a title card that says, hey. So Boris Karloff's in this movie. You might know him from Frankenstein. This is not like done in post. This was not done after the fact. This was in the original print of the movie. They literally gave a disclaimer to audiences that, hey, Boris Karloff from Frankenstein, he's in this movie, and he looks really different, and you might not believe it's him, but trust us, we're not lying. He's just a really good actor. That's genuinely what it says. Well, I'm paraphrasing to put it into more modern speech. But that's actually how they phrase it. It is really funny that you had to actually disclaim in the 1930s, you had to say, hey, by the way, we're not lying when we say this person is in this movie. That's actually him. He is good in it. He has no dialogue. He essentially plays a mumbling brute who actually they specifically say is dumb, which is old time terminology for nonverbal. He can't really speak. He just grunts. It is about 3 travelers who are on... They're driving through I think it's the UK? It's Welsh. They're in Wales. Okay. Yeah, so they're in Wales, and... I only remember that because they made a joke about Welsh, and I wasn't sure if they were supposed to be specifically in Wales or not. Anyway, so they're traveling through Wales in a car. It's very late at night, and there's a huge storm. There's a mudslide, and they're like, Jesus, we gotta like find some shelter. And they end up pulling into this secluded manor. And they open the door, and Boris Karloff is like... What's funny is that Boris Karloff wasn't even a bad actor. Just like his most famous roles are ones where he just doesn't say shit. He's just a silent man. He's just like he's a Frankenstein, the Mummy. They just had him be silent and stare because he has a crazy looking face. So they get invited in, and this house is owned by this small family. It's basically they meet these 2 siblings who are these fairly old, like 70-ish year old people, from what it seems like. And they're just sort of weird. They're sort of weird. The brother he's played by Ernest Thesiger. Ernest Thesiger. And he is just like a weird... He's always just kind of like... He really feels like he's hiding something. And he's inviting them in, and he's being courteous, but he's like got that kind of like, okay, well, don't look around too much. His sister is this woman who's hard of hearing, played by Ava Moore. And she is always going on about how she's the only one who is not an atheist in the family, and telling people to come to God. And she's just like weird. You just get a weird vibe off of her. Who plays the main people? Oh yeah, so the first trio of characters, the main trio, I guess, is this husband, or sorry, they're like 2 fiancés and their friend, who is sort of actually the main character. I didn't think he was going to be the main character. But the woman, the wife to be, is Lillian Bond, who you might know from Titanic. She's the old lady from Titanic. They are basically just cooped up in this house. The sister really doesn't want them in there. The butler is sort of weird, and they're out in the countryside, and it's just a strange situation. So they're just sort of sitting around. They're having dinner, I think. They end up having dinner, roast beef, and the brother I think he says like 7 separate times, it feels like, would you like a potato? Would you like a potato? And eventually they are joined by these 2 other travelers, a man and his friend. It's this big old businessman and his friend, his lady friend, who are like, they're maybe dating, you're not quite sure. And it's basically just this cast of characters who are stuck in this house, and the first half of the movie is just them sort of sitting around and not quite knowing what to do. Occasionally someone will go somewhere into a separate room for something, and you'll get a little scene. But not much like happens plot-wise. It's a lot of them talking and learning about each other and sort of setting up audience expectations, introducing questions. The nice thing about it, I would describe it as a slow burn movie, but it's only 70 minutes. It's pretty short. And that first half, essentially, like, you're not quite sure where it's going, but it ends up, a lot of the stuff that you learn ends up being important later on. It's a lot of setup for the second half of the film, where the lights start to go out and things start to happen. That sort of forces them to move around a little bit, and they're kind of confined near the fireplace. Someone's got to go out into the dark and stuff, and things start going, and it turns into just a really, really great, genuinely kind of gripping just suspense film where you don't know what's going on, you don't know what's going to happen. All that character buildup really pays off in the end. And it's a really good, I can envision it as a play. It reminds me of, hey, remember that Chris Crawford video I did from a while back? And he had his model of the 4 phases of a medium. This feels like something from like that first or second phase. I forget exactly which one it is, but it's essentially things that are created. Pieces of art are created that are sort of like adapted from the previous medium, if that makes sense. Like, this feels like something that could easily have been on stage, right? It feels like a stage play. Even in the intro, I thought it was kind of funny how they're driving the car and then they stop the car for some reason. The guy, he says that, like, oh, he has to take a break from driving. And it's like, that feels like that would be written into the script of a stage play to justify why the characters are stopping in place. You know? On stage. If I saw a state that some sort of theater company near me was doing a performance of this, I would be interested in it. I'd be like, yeah, I think this would work really well as a play. It's all in like a very small set of locations. It's all in one house, a small cast of characters, very conversational, very, very, very dialogue driven. And really cool. Some neat like directing stuff. Sort of some things that border on like surrealism at least one point that I'm thinking of, where a character has almost like a stress-induced vision of something, and it like plays out in the shadows across the wall in her eyes and shit. Very cool movie. Yeah, The Old Dark House from 1932. I would give it thumbs up. We also watched a Goofy movie because for some reason she was in the mood to watch a Goofy movie. A Goofy movie is good. I remember watching it as a kid. I think it was... So I learned a little bit from her about it. Apparently, this movie was essentially sent out to die. It was basically sabotaged because Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was a high-up exec at Disney for a very long time, really, he always wanted to do a movie about Goofy. He always wanted to do a Goofy-focused movie. And this was put into production, and it was set to release, but Jeffrey Katzenberg left during that point in time, and went on very infamously to found DreamWorks. And then who came in afterwards? Was it Eisner? I think it was Eisner or something. And whoever came in after him, I'm pretty sure it was Eisner, was just like, fuck that guy, and made just the spite decision to essentially release this into theaters with no marketing at all. And then by some miracle, so it bombed in theaters. And then by some miracle, it hit DVD and probably VHS at that time. VHS, like home release and reruns on television, and it just blew up there. Like it did. It probably has made all of its money back and more just based off of reruns and DVD sales and stuff like that. It is. I remember seeing this on television. They reran it all the time on like Disney Channel or whatever. And I think I'm pretty sure I had it on VHS or something growing up, or like my grandma did, something like that. So this was a movie that really. It's always just been around in my life, and even the funny thing is, it's a very 90s movie, but even when I was growing up in like the 2000s, a lot of kids I went to school with also loved this movie and quoted it and thought it was awesome. So has this strange history. It's really not a movie that deserved to fail. I think it's pretty good. I think it's a good movie. You know, it's sweet. It's a nice like family picture. one thing that I was thinking about was how 90s it is, which I mentioned a moment ago. It is very, very 90s. And a lot of people would call it dated. And I was thinking about how the fact that something is dated is often used as an insult. And I don't know if I really agree with it. I'm editing my current video, and there's a point where I call something dated. And I think that I use it in a different way from a lot of other people. So when I use the phrase dated, especially as a pejorative, I mean it as in, like, you play an old game and there's something in it that you go, yeah, we figured out how to do that way better. Like, you go play an old third-person shooter and it's got that behind the back camera angle that's just like, it's just a little, it makes sense. You can tell that it made sense at the time, but as soon as you play something that's like over the shoulder, you're like, oh, this is like way, yeah, this is way better. This is way more convenient feeling. Like the middle of the screen, like where I'm aiming, is not blocked off by my character. That's one of those things that's like dated. That's what I mean. And it's not necessarily like a huge indictment. It's just like, well, yeah, I don't know. Like we figured out how to do stuff like that in a better way. There's stuff that feels, I use it to mean like, yeah, it feels outdated in that sort of sense. I think a lot of people use dated in the sense that just because something is emblematic of its time, that it is bad, or that's inherently a bad thing. Like, oh my god, it's so dated. They're using all this slang and stuff. And I don't understand why. I think that's a stupid idea. I don't know why. Like, what, are you going to read the Odyssey and go, oh, it's so dated. Oh my god, they're like on wooden boats. They're rowing on boats. Oh my god, like what year is this? It's like, it was like 300 BC. That's what year it was. When was the Odyssey written? I'm actually not sure. Odyssey written. 750 to 650. Okay, most historians agree it was 750 to 650 BCE. It's like, yeah, dude, it was 750 BC. I think that and here's what I think it is. I think it's that people are afraid of dying. I think when you look at something like the Odyssey, it is so far in the past, and maybe the Odyssey is not a great example because it deals with a lot of like fantastical mythological things. But let's look at like the Iliad, which is a little bit, obviously the Iliad is still very fantastical, but for the most part it's just like about a war that's happening, right? You look at something like that, and it is so far in the past that it's practically a fantasy. Like, for the human mind, the Iliad and Lord of the Rings are practically the same thing. There isn't much of a distinction between them. But the 90s? Oh, the 90s? I know what the 90s is. Maybe I grew up in the 90s. And when I see 90s stuff, when I hear 90s slang, I see something from that era, it just reminds me of how much time has passed and that I'm going to get old. And I think that's what it is. I'm playing armchair psychologist, and I'm saying that when people call things dated, I think it's because they're afraid of dying, and seeing something that is from the past in a recognizable way freaks them out because it gives them a sense of perspective. And I'm telling you that you can watch a Goofy movie and you do not have to have a panic attack over your fear of death, okay? I am telling you that, right? Someone had to be brave. Someone had to stand up. I'm sitting down. But someone had to sit down in front of a microphone and get on a podcast and say this, okay? The Goofy movie is pretty good. I don't have that much else to say about it. I played the demo for Kunitsu Gami, Path of the Goddess. So here's the thing. The other day, I was messing around, and for fun, someone on Twitter made a template for a new Marvel vs. Capcom game. Like, hey, here's like just a a 60 slot roster for MVC4. Have at it. Now 60 slots is obviously a lot, but it was. I saw other people making theirs, and it got me thinking. And it's just fun to put together a fighting game roster, like a fantasy fighting game roster, in your head. So I got to it and made one of my own. And the Capcom side was. I think I actually do want to make like a. I put so much effort into it, and I think I could actually make some real arguments for what I picked. I think I'm gonna make a side channel video about it. In any event, I was considering, like, okay, I really want to represent many different, like, a really diverse range of, like, reps for Capcom. And that includes, like, different platforms, different eras, different styles. There's, like, obviously you want to hit the big pillars of Capcom's brand, but also, like, some of the more obscure stuff, some of the less well-known but cool stuff that they've made. And I was thinking, like, what would fit for that? And I remembered, oh, didn't they just put out that Kunitsu Gami game? Because I remember seeing the trailer for it. I remember seeing, like, just, I was just like, huh, okay, wondered what that is. I don't really get it. And then I looked it up, right? I was like, who's the main character? What's the main character of that? So I looked up Kunitsu Gami, and I saw it had come out like the day before or something, and all the reviews were out, and that game was reviewing really well. I'm hearing no one talk about it, but it's getting like 8s, it's getting like 7 to 9s, right? And everyone's really positive on it for the most part. And everyone who's played it has really good things to say, and I was like, how much is it? Well, first of all, it's $50. It's not even full price on PC, at least on Steam. But they also have a demo. So I was like, I'll check out the demo at least, because I'm not really even sure what the game is. So this is a really interesting example of a time where I think marketing really failed to capture what a game was. You go watch that original trailer, I feel like you can't really tell what's going on or what the game is. All right, let me just sell you on it really, really fast. It is a tower defense hack and slash game. The closest thing I could maybe compare it to would be Orcs Must Die, if you remember those games. This game is really cool. I was really into it. In fact, when the demo ended, I was pretty bummed out because I just wanted to play more of it. The demo gives you 3 levels plus a sort of boss level, essentially. And so here's the basic premise of the game. It's got this sort of fantasy Japan folklore setting and very little plot. Very little plot. It feels like, I totally agree with this. I saw someone saying this on the Reddits. It feels like a really good PS2 game where it's just like this tight, confined premise. It's very no bullshit. It's pretty fleshed out, and it's just sort of fun. And it does like one thing. It does like one concept, and it does it in a very good way. So basically, you play as this warrior named So, and your task is to guide this sort of like shrine maiden princess named Yushiro down a mountain. And every level of the game is just another part down this mountain as you're going down. So you're always kind of heading downwards from the top, because there's like these, I don't know, there's like these weird twisted looking monsters called the Seath. They cope and they seethe, and they come out at night, and you've got to progress her down the mountain and while protecting her. And essentially what that entails is here's what a level is. So you drop in, and it's daytime. So you have a limited amount of time to prepare for the night. The goal of every level is that there is a gate at the end of the level, and you have to get Yushiro to the gate in order to help her purify it. So can purify smaller things that are around the map. So you'll run up to there'll just be like these twisted corruption. There's this like twisted corruption stuff all around, like evil evil shit. I don't know, just vague evil shit is just twisting around things. And so you'll run up to like a tree or something, and then you'll hold a button and you'll do a little dance. You'll wave like a little thing around and you'll purify it. Some of the things that you purify are actually trapped villagers. So once you free a villager, you can then assign them a role, and here's where the tower defense part comes in. So every villager, essentially, you can be given a job. They can be like, I'm a close range melee guy. I'm an archer. I'm a guy who makes a barrier, or I do like an AOE slowing move to the enemies. I'm a healer. Those are the 4 that are in the demo, but there's a bunch more that I know are in the full game. I think one of them I saw was like sumo. That's fun. I wonder what that guy does. Like, I want to know. I find this system very fun and interesting. So I see like classes and I'm like, ooh, I wonder what that one does. I wonder how I could use that one. So you can assign them a job, which uses the game has this currency called orbs, which you get from just like purifying stuff. From there's like some breakable things around the map that you can harvest orbs from after you crack them open. And then also from defeating enemies. So you can spend orbs to assign them a job, and then you go into this sort of you press a button to go into this command mode where you basically just order them to stand in a certain spot. They have a little indicator for like, here's their attack range. And essentially the flow of it is essentially you go around, you free villagers, you purify things, and you're on a time limit. And you kind of want to get your ducks in a row. You kind of want to get everything ordered by the time that night falls. And then once night falls, enemies start pouring out of the gate. They start spawning in waves. Here's the real tower defense gameplay. So during that, you can order your units, your villagers around, and go over here, go over here. You can heal them up. You have to be like... The healing was a little weird. This was like a small little gripe. Once I knew how to heal, it wasn't a big problem. But you can only heal them when you... There's like two sort of command screens, like menus that you go into. One is to rearrange, like order them to go to a certain spot. The other one is when you have to walk up to them and be close. You have to be close to them, and then you have to press a button to, like, it says assign, like change role or give role. And from there you can heal them, because you're like giving them a ration to heal up with. So I guess in universe way, that makes sense. It was just a little weird for me to wrap my head around. So you position your guys around, and then So himself is able to run around, and you are a hack and slash character. So you have a fairly simple, like basic move set. You've got a regular attack and what is called a dance attack, and essentially you'll do like regular attack, dance attack, and that will do a specific move. You can do like 2 regular attacks into a dance attack, and that'll go into a different sort of sequence move. It's just like doing strings and stuff. If you've played like beat 'em ups or anything with any sort of like branching, like light, heavy attack, something like that, that's essentially the combat system. In the demo, it's very simple. It works just fine. It's fairly satisfying. You have different combos for different types of enemies. Like one you do like a rising slash, like a very Shoryuken DP slash up in the air, and that there's like certain flying enemies that you can hit with that. There's ones that are more AoE focused. There's ones that are more single target, from what I could tell. And then you have a couple special abilities which you can swap out. Those are like equipable. It's like the guard of your sword, and it gives you a new ability. So it's a pretty serviceable combat system. It feels good. It's some hack and slash stuff, and it's sort of like that's the 50-50 of the game. Is half of it is of the combat, I mean. Half of it is managing your units and positioning them in good spots, and the other half is doing the hack and slash stuff. Because you will find out pretty quickly that hey, so even the first level has like multiple. It has like 2 different routes, and like you can station all of your guys to cover one route. But then there's a little like side path that the enemies will. Some of them will just go down, and you've got to keep your eyes on that. And it got, by the time I even got to level 3, it got kind of hectic with like, I have to keep up with a lot of things that are going on. There's like ranged enemies who go up to this cliff and they don't jump down from it, but they do make these ranged attacks. So I got to like, oh shit, I don't have anyone covering there. So now I have to go up, run up sort of the long way around and then take them out before they do too much damage to Yushiro. Yushiro is essentially your home base. She is the target of the enemies while you're at night, while it's nighttime. So can be killed, but when you die, your health bar. So your health bar only appears when you get hurt. Yushiro's health bar is always visible during the nighttime segments. And when So that should give you an indication of like what's important. So when So dies, you essentially just get a timeout. You're in spirit form, and you can still like move around so that you can still like heal your guys and all that. But you can't do anything. You can only just watch, and then your health like slowly regens back to a point, and then you'll be resurrected after a timer's done. And then So will get back up in his body. What Yushiro is one of the most important parts of the game. If this sounds simple, Yushiro is honestly pretty interesting, like mechanically. Pretty interesting mechanically. So here's the deal. I said that you have to guide Yushiro from the start of the map to the gate at the end. Sometimes there'll be multiple gates that you have to go through. I think the most I saw was 2. Which means that you'll have to go through at least 2 what they call nights. Basically phases where you get to... The daytime is all like preparation stuff. Nighttime is all combat stuff. And then nighttime has its own timer that it runs on. So when that's over, then you go back to the daytime. And if you haven't gotten her to the gate, then you still got to do that. So the way that you guide Yushiro to the gate is by clearing a path for her. There is sort of this like corrupted path on the ground, and you have to spend orbs. You walk to like the end of the path, right, where she's standing, and then you have to hold a button to spend orbs, and So will like essentially cut across the path and purify it as he goes. Every second you do it drains your orbs, which you use for basically everything else, namely assigning villagers to jobs and stuff, and reassigning them to roles if you have to change them at some point. And then once whatever distance you've carved the path, Yushiro will then automatically start doing this sort of slow dance towards. So do this little slow ceremonial dance on her way there. You'll get a little indicator of where she will end up by the end of the day. And you will see it'll be, if it's white, she will not be at the gate by the time that night falls. If it's blue, if her little like silhouette is blue at the end of the path, she will get there, which means that you've basically cleared the level. So there's this interesting kind of risk reward that goes on, where essentially I would run into a level and spend some time like clearing out the corruption, purifying stuff. You get a bonus if you purify all the corruption points around the map. You'll get like an actual like upgrade item or something you can equip to your main character. And then I'm like, okay, so how many orbs do I have left after I've set up all my villagers and stuff? And then I would just spend that much. Well, okay, so you can carve a path all the way to the end of the level, but that doesn't mean that, depending on how late you did it in the day, Yushiro might not reach it by the time night falls. So you'll have to stop her You'll have to stop her in place. You can order her to stop, and then speed up time to the nighttime. But before I knew that, I ended up in a situation where she was like literally like one step away from being close enough to the gate to go purify it. And I just had enemies spawning into her, and that was a very stressful thing. I had to be very, very aggressive with my villager placement. It's a really fun game. Even by the third level, they start tossing in some pretty interesting mechanics and additions to it. There will be things like certain structures. There will be structures around the map, and it'll be like here's a platform. Here's a raised platform for your archers to stand on top of, and they will be protected if they get to shoot from up there. There is a carpenter that I found, I think by even like the second level. And the carpenter is sort of a villager who, that's always his role. He's always the carpenter. And you don't have to assign it or anything. He's just there. And there will be structures around the map. Some of them are whole, and some of them have to be repaired. So you have to assign him to go work on it, but it takes a time limit. And remember, the day, he's not going to work during the night. So you have to make sure that you do it early enough that it's able to be completed. So there's things like barriers, which will just block enemies out, and they have to actually destroy the barrier and go through its health bar before they can go any further. So there's a lot of time management going on. Unit management and time management in the daytime segments, and then there's also unit management and just like action game stuff in the nighttime segments. There's also like guarding, which I never did because I'm sure if I actually had the full game and the game started getting like really difficult, I was having a little bit of trouble, and I was like, maybe I should start blocking. There's like a block, and there's a dodge mechanic. There's a bunch of like interesting enemy types that are thrown in there. Nothing like, in the grand scheme of game design, super groundbreaking, but it's like, okay, you've got like some basic guys, you've got ranged guys, you've got flying guys that you have to hit a certain way. Archers are like the only other guys who can shoot those dudes down. And then there's sort of like the heavy elite units. And those can range from, here's a really tanky guy, to here's a guy who does a lot of damage but doesn't have a lot of health, to here is basically just a walking bomb that you really want to take out. You really want to take that guy out. And if you actually do take it out, when it'll explode, but it will explode in a way that only stuns enemies. And stuff starts getting pretty chaotic. They start introducing multiple different gates that enemies will spawn out of during the nighttime. So you'll be attacked from like multiple different angles. There are, in addition to just having multiple paths for enemies to travel down, there are also just multiple paths that Yushiro can take. So you'll come to a fork in the road, and you can say, I'll take the left side or the right side, and each one will have its pros and cons. The right side, in the level that I played, it's got like a tower and like one or two other like a different structure that will like empower your units. The other side there's like a barrier on it, and there is essentially like this little zone where Yushiro, if she's standing in it, she will actually just passively deal damage to enemies and not be just like the king in chess and just sort of sit there and take it. So I lost my train of thought. But, so one side might have like more structures that will help you, but it's also got a lot of like alternate paths and stuff like that enemies can flank you from. There are places around the map, around the level, where you'll have to go and assign someone to go clear them out. So again, another time management thing, because it takes a while for some, like, it's either a wall that has to be cleared, or sorry, a path that has to be cleared up of like rubble, or a bridge that has to be rebuilt or something like that. And that will help you like complete all of the, like, get all the purification things that you need for the level, because certain corruption spots will be locked behind there. It's just, I don't know, it's just like a really engaging game. I think calling it a really good PS2 game is pretty apt, because it does just feel like a game that costs a reasonable amount. It has a nice visual style. It's very dedicated to its aesthetic. It's got a cool UI, and it's got just solid gameplay. It feels like a game that someone really wanted to make, which might sound funny, but like what I mean is that, like, you ever see a game and you're like, yeah, someone was ordered to make this. Maybe players want it, right? But someone was like, all right, we got to make another one. Kunitsu Gami feels like a game that someone came up with a really cool idea, and then they just got to make it. And they did, from what I played, and from what I've heard of the game, from both review outlets as well as just people online, did a really good job executing on it. Oh yeah, there's a very charming part of the game, which is that once you clear out like certain levels, they will become bases, essentially. I'm assuming there's some sort of like general like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 base that you go through. The one that you get at the start it's really neat. It's essentially like it's the first map that you cleared. And when you go back to it, when you go back to the base, you can just wander around, but there'll be like a tent set up, and the villagers that you freed while you were playing that map, that level, now they're just doing stuff. So there'll be, if you had a woodcutter, they'll be actually like cutting tree. They'll be cutting a tree. They'll be collecting wood. There'll be someone polishing up a shrine, like maintaining it. There'll be someone picking weeds and stuff out of the grass. Like this nice little ambient stuff going on. There's a dog that you can pet. Can you pet the dog? Apparently that's a Capcom mandate, that you have to be able to pet the dog in their games. I'm cool with it. And then you go into the tent to visit Yushiro, and that's kind of where you do like your main upgrading stuff. It's all very like highly themed. Like, okay, you're not just going to open a menu and here's the tech tree. It's like, you're sitting in front of Yushiro, and there are like multiple different things on the table, and then you select that, and then that takes you to this menu or this sort of scene where it's like, okay, you can upgrade your individual, like the jobs. So like a woodcutter, who is your close range fighter guy. There's a whole upgrade path. There's a whole upgrade tree for them. And you can just, like, very simple, just like one branch, like not a bunch of branches or anything, just one path. And then the whole game is like themed around masks. Like everyone's wearing a mask except for Yushiro, I guess. And as you level up the individual roles, the masks that they're wearing get more and more highly decorated and extravagant to signify that they're stronger, which is neat. There'll be, like, oh, your special ability, it's not just a thing that you select from a menu. It's like the guard of your sword, like the hand guard that you replace with a different one that, for some reason, that changes your special move that you can do. That could range from like a big slash to you can put a trap on the ground to, I'm sure, other stuff that I didn't get to see. Stuff like that. There is also a completely unnecessary option in the tent called sweets, and you will occasionally unlock new sweets for Yushiro, and they are just like, here's a food, and then you select it, and then you can look up from the table at her, and she will take the plate and like the chopsticks, and she will just eat like a piece of cake or something. There is no gameplay purpose to it. it's just you're watching a princess eating some sweet treats, and then she finishes it and puts it down. I guess if anything, each one of the sweets has like a description to it, which I think is supposed to give background information about the lore, which is a very funny way to do world building for your game, or anything, honestly. Essentially, because there is very little plot or explanation, or it just kind of throws you into this setting, and it's just like, yeah, I don't know, stuff's going on. And the only world building exists in descriptions of various sweet confections, where they will mention like the history and cultures that this sweet is from. Like, the people of this region eat this during the festival of this, and stuff like that. And it's like a whole paragraph that someone really was like, this is how you're going to learn about our world. Sweet-based world building. Cake-based world building. It's delightful. It's a game I am honestly considering buying. I have wishlisted it. I don't know how much more money I want to spend, because the summer sale just happened, and I feel like I spent too much money this month. A patreon.com/TiganMoon, by the way. But man, I really want to play this game. I want to play the full thing. It is very cool. I would recommend it. If any of that sounded cool, go and check it out. I saw someone saying, and I totally see where they're coming from, that this is like this generation's Okami. This is the new Okami of this sort of niche game that's really cool and stylized, and also specifically has like a classical Japanese aesthetic to it. Fantasy, classical Japanese historical fantasy kind of thing. And probably will not get as much recognition as it deserves. And then in 5 years, people will be going, dude, that Kunitsu Gami game was really cool. What the fuck? Yeah, I recommend it. Just based off the demo. It was really cool. And now we get into the bigums, because the rest of this podcast is going to be about Evo. So let's go. We'll just there was a lot to talk about. So first things first, there was some cool SNK news. SNK have announced a couple new projects. Okay, so one of them was Art of Fighting, which surprises me. I think it's weird to have both. I think it's weird to have Art of Fighting, Fatal Fury, and King of Fighters like back to back to back. That seems just like Art of Fighting to me never had like a super strong identity. They only made a couple of them and then sort of just ended up folding it into KOF. Sort of like SNK. SNK had a big problem. One of the reasons they went bankrupt was they just massively oversaturated their own market, their biggest market of fighting games. And Art of Fighting feels like one of those series that like, hey, there's some cool characters from this. Maybe it doesn't stand out as much, you know? But a new Art of Fighting, so I am curious as to what that looks like. I'm not opposed to it. I just think it's interesting, you know? Also, not a fighting game, but a Samurai Showdown, like, hack and slash game? Something like that? Like an action game? Which actually sounds very cool. I am all for fighting game series that let you go outside of the bounds of the fighting game stage and actually explore the world. I really need to play Guilty Gear Overture at some point. I'm down with that. Sam Show is a good series to do with that. There are so many fighting game series that would make for really cool beat 'em ups. Oh man, like World Tour was so cool in Street Fighter 6. That was such a cool concept. There's so many that I could. There's just so many cool worlds that I would want to explore. Okay, I need to play Guilty Gear Overture. They announced like a couple. They announced Kevin for Fatal Fury. You guys don't know Kevin? Kevin's actually cool. He is disgustingly top tier in Mark of the Wolves. So he's back. New designs. They announced what are, I guess, the last characters for KOF 15. Vice and Mature, which is cool. So I'm going to throw a little rant in here about Vice and Mature. So namely the history of their designs, because they have new redesigns. So Vice and Mature started off in the KOF 96 or 97, and their whole deal was that they are sexy evil secretaries for the guy who is like trying to become the devil. That's like their deal, and I always thought that they had a great look, and they were very 90s, you know. In their aesthetic, with like the long skirt with like the legs slit, and this sort of like button up shirt with like button up collared shirt and stuff. And then in KOF 13 they came back and they had a great redesign. I love the KOF 13 redesign for them, where they're in pantsuits now, which I think is great. It's like, oh, that's a great modernization of that design, because it's taking the sort of, it's modernizing it, but it's totally keeping with like, it feels like if you were to design a character like that today, that's what they would look like. Sexy evil secretary in like this sort of tight-fitting pantsuit with like their colors as a sort of their main colors, you know, red. Vice is red and Mature is like this sort of white, very light lilac, I guess. Sometimes. Cool designs. Big fan of them. And then they came back in 14, and I think they just really fucked it up. And I don't know why they went with such radically different looks for them. I am not a fan of the designs that they have in 14. They have these weird... It's just like overly detailed. Hang on. Vice and Mature KOF 14. It's like overly detailed in a way that I don't like weird, like, namely the big thing for me is like, for some reason all of a sudden they have like these shoulder slits on their sleeves. I don't know why. They have like this weird kind of open, I'm not sure if that's like the bottom of their vests, but it looks like they just have like a skirt around their pants, and it just, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. It's just like overly designed, and it feels like kind of like a dumb way. Like, how can we show more skin on them? I know, expose their shoulders. Okay. I've never been a fan of it. So they showed off the new designs. They showed off the brand new designs for them. And you know what? I like the new designs. I actually do. Hang on. Let me see if I can pull up a picture of it. Yeah, they showed them off. Here it is. Oh, here's some nice concept art. It feels like a nice middle ground. They went back to the old design with like the long skirt and everything with the leg slit, but I like it. I like it a lot. They took some of the frilly stuff from the 14 design, but they put it just on their their sleeves, like the ends of their sleeves, and I think that actually looks a lot better. The little shoulder detail, I guess they want detail in their shoulders for some reason. It's now like this sort of like rose pattern, like lace, like mesh sort of thing, which is a lot subtler and just adds like a little bit of contrast. I think it looks nice, actually. And just like tiny little flourishes and embellishments on things like their collars. Really nice. I actually think they look really good here. I don't mind these designs. I wish that they would go back to the pantsuit look, because I think that is, I think that one's really cool and unique. Very rare to find a fighting game character wearing like a pantsuit. But this is good. I'm actually into this. The big news for Tekken, Heihachi's back. Jesus Christ. So if you don't know, they spent an entire game, there was a whole game dedicated to killing off this fucker Kazuya punched him into a volcano. And you're like, okay, Heihachi is just a guy. He's like a crazy, insane, super strong guy who can catch bullets with his teeth, but he is just a guy. And how much can you really justify? And him surviving, right? And here's the thing. Heihachi did actually die. He was straight up dead. And when Harada said something like, Heihachi Mishima is completely dead on a live stream, I actually believe him. Why? Because this is not the same Heihachi. Heihachi is being resurrected from the dead by a cult of Tekken-worshipping monks, which is a very weird sentence that I didn't think I would say. But rewatching it, it's pretty clear that they're doing like an additional story mode thing, which is cool. That's actually cool. I like fighting games getting additional story content after the main release. And it involves this order of, they are literally called the Tekken monks. And from what it seems like, they are going to be doing a ritual to resurrect Heihachi, which is really dumb. It's really dumb. But Tekken has had weirder shit. Has it had weirder shit? They've never gone in this specific direction. I was like, has Tekken ever straight up resurrected a character? You know? They've had like fake out deaths plenty of times. But I don't think they've ever had an actual character be resurrected with like ancient dark magics or something. But he comes back and he's the new design. He's like young again. He's a younger version of Heihachi. He looks like Tekken 2 or something, maybe even younger. And they say like the King of Iron Fist resurrection. So yeah, it's pretty clear that he is actually back from the dead. His death was real, but he's back from the dead. I have no idea what his character is going to be like. He is now the second... What is this trend? What is this trend? First Bison, and now Heihachi. Of characters being resurrected, is Heihachi also going to have, like, broken, shattered memories or something? So that's goofy as hell. Heihachi is one of those characters who you could make an argument for the fact that, kind of like Bison, they've been in so many games that not including them is almost like not a good idea, because there's people who have been playing that character for 30 years now. So, yeah. I want to talk about the Strive news. We're kind of burning through this. Those are like the more minor things for me, personally. So, Strive was the first top 6 that I actually watched. I wasn't that interested in Grand Blue. Apparently, Grand Blue got some kind of big reveal, and they are doing like an actual season 2. So that's cool. Continued support for that game. I'm not super into Grand Blue. I tried to play it a little more. I think it's just not my thing. I'm not super into like... It feels kind of sluggish. If I'm being mean, I would say it kind of feels like... Grand Blue, to me, feels like how people who don't like Strive describe Strive. But the Grand Blue shooters, they like their game. So, good for them. Strive got honestly, a lot of big news. I want to talk about the competition first, though. So, this top 6, it's weird to say top 6. And not top 8 anymore. But hey, we gotta have Justin Wong playing rock, paper, scissors for like 10 minutes on stage with people from the audience. That's what we had to make room for. This top 6, this finals was like way better than last year's. I complained last year about how Strive top 6 was kind of lame, you know? It was very like it was very blowout heavy. Like a lot of just straight like this person gets 3-0'd. It was just like back-to-back 3-0, 3-0, 3-0. Like none of the matches were very close. It was very top tier heavy as well, which is like, you know, of course, you know, like they're trying to win, right? I'm never going to like shame someone for playing a top tier, like legitimately. Like I get it, especially in competition, you know, like I get it. But from a spectator's perspective, it's like, okay, it's Nago and Happy Chaos and who was it? Was it like Soul around that time? Just like the usuals, the Strive regs, Zato. Just kind of like and then Leffen won, and just no one was that excited. No one was excited. No one liked that. Dude, it was like kind of funny. It was humorous how when he won, no one in the crowd looked that excited. This was way better. So, first of all, way better matches. Like, actually super close. A lot of them went to final game, final round. Finals went to, it got final, the grand finals had like a reset, and it still went to final game, final round. It was really exciting. And just some like really good play. Way better character variety. It was like 6 completely different characters. No repeats. Only one of them was Happy Chaos. And even the Happy Chaos player had like a pretty cool play style. He played him in a very aggressive mix-up heavy way, which if you're going to play, if I'm going to be watching Happy Chaos, I would rather it not be the extremely dry zoning that character has. I think Arxis successfully nerfed him to have to rely more on his other tools than just zoning. So that's good. He's still very strong, but that's appreciated. But no, there was an Anji, and that was cool. That's a really cool thing there was an Anji who got like really far, like in the top 4 or something, really far in the competition. He was, because Anji's a character who at the start of the game was very weak, considered one of the weakest characters, if not the weakest. And just over time, he's sort of just been making, patch by patch, making a comeback. He got a new move that's really good for him. And it's cool to see the arc of a low tier as they start to build back up in the ranks. It's nice to see that character represented at a high level. And then grand finals was Jacko versus Soul, which was really fun to watch. Jacko is not a very popular character because she is a very technical character. She's hard to play. She has a lot of very funky. There's no real character who plays quite like her. Funny enough, I think the only comparison I could make in fighting games would be like Peach from Smash, with like pulling up items and tossing them and doing setups and with that stuff. That's basically how Jacko. That's like the closest equivalent I can think of. That was a really fun set to watch. You're watching Soul, this very aggressive brawler character, versus Jacko, this sort of technical, wants to play at a range and then set up her minions and then go in and do crazy pressure. But then, Soul got an opening, and now it was very very swingy in that way, which was exciting to watch. Also, the chat it's like the only fun Twitch chat for any of these events was during this match, because the whole chat, depending on who was winning, was just spamming. They were alternating between kill wife or wife fight back, which is a great, it's the lore matchup, the domestic incident matchup. It was really fun to watch, and the Jacko player won. Nitro NY won over the more traditionally dominant Soul. So that was really cool. Just like there was some really fun Asuka play. Just a really fun top 8 to watch in a lot of ways. Lots of variety, lots of cool storylines, lots of great close matches and good high level play, like hype moments and like, oh fuck, the game feels like it's in good state. Also, it got a patch like this morning that I think is actually really cool. It was a minor patch, but yeah, they nerfed Wild Assault. It seems like they're kind of starting to rein in some of the mechanics that they added into probably a healthier state. So that's all cool. Great. And now I want to talk about the season 4 and all the stuff that they revealed. So first of all, the 3v3 mode, the team of 3 mode, whatever they've been calling it. So this got announced a while ago. It feels like this was announced like a year back. And we just never heard that much about it. And it was weird because they weren't super clear on what it was, besides the fact that it was 3 versus 3 players. It was an actual like co-op multiplayer thing where you would take 3 characters, each piloted by a different player, versus another team of 3 players, which was a cool idea. And I was sort of just expecting the similar sort of team battle modes that were in previous games. So like XX, I don't think Xrd had this, but XX had a team battle that was very similar. Sorry, well it was similar to like King of Fighters style, where you pick a character, everyone picks 3 characters, and then you fight until one person gets KO'd, and then the next character jumps in, and it's just the next match, and it's just like an elimination thing, which, let's be real, it's never been the most interesting feature, you know. KOF as a game is designed around it, but this was just sort of, you know, it's sort of stapled on. I kind of thought what this was going to be, and even if it was that, it would have been fine. It would have been cool, you know. It's always fun to have more multiplayer stuff and stuff to do with groups of people. Fighting games are a 1v1 thing, so it's a little harder to play them as party games, you know. And then they showed off what it actually was. They had a whole big blog post about it, and gameplay from it, and a trailer, and it is way more extensive than I was expecting. So it is not the like KOF style elimination team mode. It is a tag fighter. It is a tag fighter built into Strive. It feels like a mod, but it's just a new game mode. So here's essentially like how it works. You've got 2 teams of 3 players, each piloting a different character. I'm pretty sure. I think you can play this. You can do like 3 of the same character, which is really funny. And you have 1 character on point. They're called the point character, and then 2 as assists. And then the assist characters the assist players can essentially hit a button and jump in, and their character will perform whatever assists they have. I don't know if there are multiple selectable assists like Marvel, or if it's just 1 per character, or maybe you can choose or something, or you can customize. Who knows? But they can do that, and then they can also switch out. So you can actually tag out. There is a limit to how many times you can tag someone out or tag them in. You can only do it. You can only be on point once per round, I believe. And then after that, you just have to stick. So you get a maximum of 2 tags. I'm not sure if you keep the same health bar or whatever, or how the tension meter works, or what. It might be shared? That would be weird, though, because different characters have different health values. I'm not like super sure on all the rules, but you can tag in and out. And then once you tag in, the other character doesn't just hop away. They actually stay on screen and can be controlled for a bit, like for a couple seconds. So you can actually do like we can do like an actual 2 versus 1 situation, which is really funny. And then in addition to just being able to like jump in and do an assist, the assist players also have a selection of like items that they can toss into the match, and it ranges from like light a fire underneath the enemy character wherever they are at the moment, and that'll like set them on fire and to be doing like a damage over time to them. It can be like throw a Faust Afro into the stage, you know, make lightning strike down, and I'm pretty sure you can customize which items you take into the match. It is like a really cool, actually fully featured mode, and it actually doesn't surprise me that they are doing that it took them this long, to be able to show off, because I can actually see there was probably a lot of, getting up to like 6 characters on screen doing stuff at the same time is kind of nutty. There might have been some actual like real optimization work put in to make that function without breaking the game. And then probably just, I don't know, like a lot of design stuff probably went in. This probably went through many iterations until they landed on this. But it's super cool. There is going to be a free beta of it that you can test on the 25th, I believe. And when I say free, I mean it's like a separate application. They said that it's basically its own thing that'll be on Steam. Eventually, it'll come to the game as like a part of Strive. But for the beta, I don't know how long they said the beta is going to last. But you will just be able, you could just go download and essentially try out. I guess it'll be a demo for Strive if you're curious about the game. And what's really funny about this is that they're essentially doing 2XKO before 2XKO. A tag fighter where you can play it co-op and it's an open beta that's free. That's 2XKO. The other thing that this makes me think is, man, this is a lot of work to put into something that is just like an extra mode for a game that's like 3 years old. And it kind of makes me think, like, this is great. This is really cool, and it'll be a great addition to the game. But it kind of makes me think, man, they put so much effort into it. Is this like a testing ground for a future game? Because, I mean, Arxis already has experience doing tag fighters with Dragon Ball FighterZ. Are they kind of like gearing up, no pun intended, for some sort of Guilty Gear / Arxis themed tag fighter or something? You know, you can talk about what would be. I would love a Guilty Gear versus BlazBlue game. I think that would be really cool. That would be sick. And if you made you could make that a tag fighter and whatnot. I would love. I'd like, I don't know, do like Arxis All Stars or something where it's probably be mostly BlazBlue and Guilty Gear, but you could also throw in like River City. You know, you could throw in, what is it? Battle Fantasia? Is that what it's called? That weird 3D, that funky, neat 3D fighter that they put out. You probably couldn't get Hokuto no Ken, but you know, you could do just random other stuff that they've published. You know, that could be. That I'd be down for that. I would love to see Arxis do another tag fighter. That's a really neat concept to me. This looks really fun. So that's really cool. And then, of course, they also announced the whole... Okay, I say they announced. They announced the entire Season 4 character pass. So, I woke up, and the first thing I saw was that it got leaked. And it was literally... the first thing I saw was people on Discord posting about it. And I was like, oh, I was honestly really disappointed. I really wanted to see it in real time. It was kind of annoying to me that it got leaked early. And you know what it was? Okay. The video went up on the YouTube channel like the morning of. And it was up for so long that, like, I think a lot of people didn't even realize it was a leak. Not a leak. Not a leak, but like an accidental fuck up, you know? I guess you could call that a leak. It is a leaky ship. Like, IGN was reporting on it. Usually if there's a leak like that, where of something that's like, okay, this is obviously going to be announced in a few hours, someone just fucked up. Usually outlets like that will be kind of cool about it and not make a tweet about announcing it and running articles about the new characters. But it was up for long enough that I think some people just didn't put 2 and 2 together and were just like, oh, I guess they just announced it early. And like, no, that was supposed to be showed off at like in the afternoon. Not at 7 a.m. So it got reprivated, but it was already all over Twitter and stuff, and a little bit disappointing. But hey, you know, the actual trailer came out, so you can talk about it and all that. You know what it was? You know what I'm sure it was? I made a little tongue-in-cheek tweet about like, hey, Arxis, if you need someone to manage your YouTube channel, I'll do it. Since apparently you guys don't know how to, like, publish a video as unlisted or private, you know? And you know what I think it was? I think someone fucked up on the scheduling. On scheduling the upload. There is... what I think happened is that someone in Japan is in charge of, like, the PR for the YouTube channels. Like, they're in charge of putting stuff up on the channels. And they probably uploaded that trailer in advance. And then when they, because here's the thing, it only got leaked on the English ArcSys channel. They always do whenever they put out a trailer, they always put them out simultaneously, an English version and a Japanese version on those respective channels. The Japanese version came out at the right time. The English version came out early. And you know what I think it was? I think that whoever was uploading them, when they went to go schedule the time, I think they fucked up on the time zone. I think they screwed up in the time zone, and they put down on my YouTube channel. I don't know. I'm curious about how that works. If, like, I don't know the way that YouTube channels work, you can have multiple channels under a single, like, email account, a single Google account. I'm not sure if they have that or if they have them under separate accounts. It could be either, depending on how they did it, or how old the channel is, because that wasn't always possible. You had to make different email accounts, which was a pain in the ass. So all of mine, for instance, are under my single, like, business email, that account. And then I have, like, a private YouTube, just a personal one that I've had forever. That's under, like, my personal email address. And I'm wondering if, like, if they were under separate, like, Google accounts, and the Google accounts are, like, considered to be in different regions, like the English one is in America or something. Is it in like an American time zone? I wonder. I'd be curious, because mine are obviously all in, like, whatever American time zone I'm in. And so I do think that it was someone screwed up and they put the time that made sense to them in Japan. And then it just happened to be, oops, there was like a 6-hour difference, right? Or like a 7-hour difference that they screwed up on. They didn't do the math right, or it wasn't, or they just they flubbed it. So, anyway, this is not the first time this has happened, by the way. Way back when they were first revealing the original roster of the game, Ino was the last character to be revealed. And they did an event. They did like a whole live stream event. It was like that Japanese game dev roundtable that they haven't done in a bit. But they were going to show off the Ino trailer, and it got leaked early. The character got leaked early, not the trailer, because of like some freaking GameSpot article that went up like 4 hours too early or something. Like, come on, like, guys, I feel bad for ArcSys. Like, it's always like shit like this. Elfelt got leaked because Harada, again, I think this was a time zone thing. Harada I think he had a tweet scheduled and he messed up the time zones, and he was like the morning that it was supposed to be revealed, he goes like, Elfelt coming to Guilty Gear Strive, with like a link to the website with all the pictures and everything. And like, it was a page on the website that wasn't supposed to be public, but if you had the link, you could see it. Oh my God, this keeps happening to them. I feel bad. Anyway, trailer. So, 4 characters, and it's an interesting selection. I predicted, so I didn't know that they were going to do this. I thought they were just going to show off one character, because that's been their MO. But they are falling in line with Capcom's strategy of just show off all the characters in the first trailer for the season, like they did with the Season 2 trailer for SF6. And you know what? I really appreciate that. I actually like it a lot more. I had a whole discussion about it, about like, you know, is it really fair to try to sell people a season pass with content that they don't know is going to be in it? And there is there's arguments to be made with like, okay, well, if you don't know if the pass is worth it because you don't know what's in it yet, then like you shouldn't buy it. But also, on the other end of that, you could maybe consider it a little bit unethical to sell people on something that you have not fully like revealed what's even going to be included in it, right? From the publisher's side. And I prefer just the idea that the trailer comes out for the season and you get an idea of at least who most of the characters are. I actually thought it was kind of fun when Street Fighter V did it in their 5th season, that they showed off the first 4 characters, but the 5th one was a secret. And that was kind of fun, right? I don't mind that. That's more than enough content to be like, okay, I don't think the final character is gonna... Maybe they can. Maybe they will completely sway you. But, I think that's like acceptable. I think that's acceptable. And it's a little bit of like a fun thread to follow along with. And revealing all the characters does not diminish the conversation about the season. Because now the discussion becomes, what are they going to look like? What are they going to play like? And that is equally, I think, interesting for people who are following the game, because season passes are for people who are actively like playing the game and following along. They are not like necessarily like big marketing. Sometimes they will be like, hey, here's a fan favorite character to get you back in. But for the most part, you can do that while still just revealing all of them. It accomplishes the same thing. And it kind of takes some of the pressure off, It takes a little bit of the pressure off. Because imagine if season 3 or something. Imagine if like... I'm trying to think of an example. So imagine you like announce your whole DLC roster. Let's say season 2 of Strive, which a lot of people were like a little bit iffy on. I think it made a lot of sense for what they did, but like it takes pressure off of a character like Bedman, because Bedman is a lot more niche, right? He was sort of like middling in popularity during Exerd, He's not a character a lot of people were going to get super hype for. So when the reveal is Bedman, there's going to be more people who are just like, okay, all right. But if you say Johnny, Elfelt, Asuka, whoa, all these highly anticipated fan favorite characters, or people who like the fucking main villain of the series who's never been playable before, whoa, and then Bedman's in there. Bedman's also in there too. That takes the pressure off of that. I think it's just better for the level of conversation around the game, and the people who were going to be excited and who are going to be theorizing about who the next character is, those people are the same ones who are just going to, now they're just going to be talking about, well, what do you think they're going to play like? What's the moveset going to be, Are they going to keep this? Are they going to change that? How are they going to use this mechanic? And all that. It's just going to be big nerds for the game. So I like that. And now I can finally actually talk about the selection of characters. So, good... Mostly? This was very weird. Okay, we'll go through them in order. So the first one is Dizzy. Dizzy makes a lot of sense, all right? Dizzy is a fan favorite character. They kind of like to open these seasons with popular, very, very liked characters, right? Dizzy is sort of like, there's like a waifu factor, of course, but she's also just sort of popular. She's important in the story. People just like having Dizzy in the game because she's just sort of like one of the best characters visually. Like Dizzy's whole thing is that she has these 2 wings, and the wings like morph into like little people. That's weird to describe it. There's essentially literally like, she has an angel and a devil on her shoulders. And there's like the angel Undine or Undine. I don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced. And then like the Grim Reaper evil guy named Necro. And they sort of have like a push and pull. And Dizzy herself is this sort of like pacifist, like not a real fighter, sort of innocent kind of person. that are like pulling her along. Like, it's a great concept for a character, and visually, Dizzy's animations have always been really fun because of the ways that her like wings transform and stuff like that. I've always loved her dust animation where Necro taps her shoulder. He taps like her other shoulder, and she looks over, and then when she's not looking, he delivers this huge uppercut that launches them. Like, that's a really fun animation. She's chock full of stuff like that. Just a visually great character to watch, and I'm really excited to see just how she's animated in Strive. Also, I love her new design. I was never like super hot on her original look. It just felt a little bit random. I don't know. It never felt like it fit her very well. Like, she's always just kind of like, Disney's always reminded me of like a Disney princess, you know, like a Snow White, like singing to the animals and stuff, and the chipmunks, and she loves nature. And it was kind of weird that she was always in this like odd like leather bathing suit thing that just didn't really, she never felt like a very sexual character, but her design had a lot of like sexual appeal in it. You know, it was fine. But I actually always kind of liked her other outfits where like, you know, in the older games, she was in like this, what was it? It's in her intro before she like transforms into her main like battle outfit. She's just in like a little she's got like a little bandana on her head, and she's wearing like a little very casual outfit, and she's got like a basket of fruit or something. That always like struck me as being something that makes more sense. Like, this feels like what Dizzy would put on in the morning. Her new design, oh my god, she looks so cool. I think she looks so cool. Mind you, it's just concept art, and we haven't seen the full thing. But she looks like she stepped off of like a Japanese woodblock painting of a goddess, right? With like the kimono and just like the light around her and the way her clothes are flowing. She's also supposed to be a queen now. She's Queen Dizzy. So I think what happens, I think the idea is that at the end of Strive's second story mode, Kai renounces the crown, and I think he just renounces it to, I think the idea is that he's just renouncing it and giving it to Dizzy, which is like cool. So she's like, so to put this in so he's Biden and she's Kamala Harris. Dude, you know what's so fucked up? When Biden stepped down from when he announced that he wasn't going to be running, people were joking about like, explain this in fighting game terms. And the same day, we literally got a character who allows you to explain it in fighting game terms. Biden is Kai Kisk, and Kamala Harris is Dizzy. And Biden is stepping down and giving it to the daughter of the devil. I'm going to refrain. I could go harder with shitting on Kamala Harris, but I don't want to talk about politics right now. I want to talk about Guilty Gear, which has never been political ever. So I think that's the idea, is that she's like the new queen or whatever, which is cool. I also dig so specifically with the goddess thing, like Guilty Gear's always had like the heaven or hell thing. Dizzy herself is like the daughter of Guilty Gear's version of the devil, Justice. And also you have like Chaos and Jacko, who have like the Halo motifs. So this has always kind of been, this is always this sort of motif that's been throughout the series, and it's sort of neat that her new design kind of evokes some of that divine sort of imagery. I think it looks really cool. She is the first character who's going to be releasing, and you know, oh dude, that artwork of her is great. That artwork of like the painting of her is so cool looking. It's totally like Daisuke art too. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's totally Daisuke art. Wow, that is gorgeous. And one of the ways you can tell it's Daisuke art is that her eyes are fucking weird. Like they're a little like cross-eyed outwards, you know? That's very funny. Like he'll just sometimes draw characters looking kind of wonky like that, and I love it. Yeah, that looks great. I can't wait to see her. Her hair's like in a new style, super dope looking. Second character, Venom, another very popular fan favorite character. Apparently, Venom was one of the characters that Daisuke, like, it pained him not to include Venom in the base roster. He gave an interview where he specifically cited Venom as being a character who was very difficult to say no to. It looks like from the concept art that they showed off that Venom is finally going to be keeping his vest. He's always had a vest on, and then he takes it off to show off just his chest and abs. And I guess now that Zato is officially taken and officially straight, Venom is like covering up, and he's admitted defeat. He's putting the vest back on. No more man whore hours. But that's cool. I've always loved the vest, and I thought it was a shame that he always rips it off because I thought it was such a cool look. Venom is a super cool character. If you don't know his deal, he fights with a pool cue, and he summons pool balls in the air, and then you can strike. He can summon multiple pool balls, and then the order that he has like different patterns that he can set them in depending on like which buttons he presses to summon them. And then he can hit them. Any attack that uses the pool cue will strike the balls, and it's like a dynamic physics object, and the balls will get like knocked around and bounce off the edges of the screen and stuff. And he's a really cool character. He's super unique. He sort of is able to oscillate between, he can play keep away and just zone out with his projectiles, and especially if you play a character like Slayer, create a very difficult like wall of pressure to kind of get around. But he can also play really powerful rushdown, and he's got these really strong tools for putting the opponent in the corner and then just making them block and block and block and block. He can do these, he's sort of infamous for these really fast, pretty much instant overheads that he can do. He has this air special called Mad Struggle, where he just like jabs downward with his pool cue really fast. And you can do that really low to the ground in the older games. I don't know if they'll keep that part of it. But he's like, yeah, he's a really cool character. Kind of a pain in the ass to fight against for sure, but he's just really neat. He's just always had great, visually such a dope looking character, really stylish, has a very technical side to him, and that's cool. Third, Uniqua from the Backyardigans. Now, Uniqa, who is in the Guilty Gear Strive anime that they announced a little bit ago. Dual Rulers. So she is I guess she's getting, when is she coming out? It says spring 2025. She might release like concurrently with the anime, which would be neat. She is a girl who apparently hates gears. So my sort of pet theory for this is that over time Daisuke has been sort of slowly working towards a passing of the torch for the Guilty Gear series. And he's been doing it pretty slowly. And now that I actually put it together, I can kind of see how long it's been. And I think what he's doing is he's sort of trying to introduce the new main sort of cast of Guilty Gear, or like the core protagonist characters are like going to be Sin, and I think like Sin, Ramlethal, and this new Uniqa girl. And they kind of spent like a couple games building up Sin and Ram. Ram's been in 2 games, Sin's been in 3. And kind of ingratiating them with the fan base, giving them actual character arcs on the side to sort of justify their existence and stuff, not just like toss you, hey, here's the new protagonist. And now, because by the end of Strive, Soul is no longer a gear. He's no longer a guilty gear. He's no longer guilty, and he's no longer a gear. He made everything right. So he doesn't have his powers anymore, as far as I understand. And is moving into more of like a mentor, like retirement role. And Sin has kind of been set up as like the new protagonist. So I believe here's my prediction. Here's my Guilty Gear lore prediction, because I know everybody likes it when I talk about Guilty Gear lore. The trailer for the anime kind of basically stated that this Unica girl, her main motivation is that she fucking hates gears. So she's a little bit like Biken. I almost said bison. M. Biken. Chew on that for a little bit. M. Biken. So naturally, the king of a major nation announcing that his wife is a gear and he is part gear because of her now, because of some shit that they have not explained. And also his son is half gear. And now he is stepping down and renouncing the throne to a gear who, again, is the daughter of the devil who destroyed Japan. Japan is a crater in the ocean. That inspires her to a little bit of political extremism. I'm assuming that this is essentially like that is the conflict point, which will naturally draw Sin into the story. Like she's targeting gears around the world. She's going after Dizzy. Sin obviously has to protect his mama. Soul gets involved because, of course, this is like a family matter now. And that is the anime is gonna, I don't know. I have no idea where she's gonna go in the anime, but I believe they're sort of setting up this thing where Sin is like the new Kai, being his son, you know, and Unica is like the new Soul because she has jacket and headband sort of thing. She's got like a mask on her forehead, and belts, and she hates gears. And Soul's character started off as the reason his name is Soul Bad Guy is because after he was turned into a gear, he went around destroying gear production facilities, and the government labeled him Bad Guy. So he was like trying to destroy gears and shit. So I think that that's sort of like an echo of those two characters, but in like the modern Guilty Gear context, right? Of like, you know, it's not like a literal retread, but there are shades of those characters in the new ones. Will Unica be cool? I don't know. That's for the anime to sell me on. But that's kind of where looks like where it's going for me. And to be honest, I'm actually okay with that. I think that as a passing of the torch, this might actually end up, if the next game comes out and Sin is the protagonist, Soul and Kai are gonna be there, right? Just for gameplay purposes, they sort of have to be there in some way. But if he is the protagonist and Unica is like his rival, and they're like, they have some kind of rivalry going on, and yada yada, and whatever, because Happy Chaos isn't dead fully. He like exists in some weird way. I think I'd be okay with it. Sort of depends on how Unica pans out as a character. I have no opinion on her as of yet. I think her design is fine. She looks like a Guilty Gear character. But I would be fine with the general idea of the torch passing. Also might be one of the subtlest and slowest moving torch passings I've seen in anything. It's not like Street Fighter where they go, oh, here's the new guy, here's the protagonist. Oh, fuck, it didn't work. Here's the new guy, he's the protagonist. Oh, fuck, it didn't work. Here's the new guy, he's the protagonist. Oh, fuck, it didn't work. They're doing with Sin what Capcom should have done with Sean. You know what I mean? right? Introduce this character, have him be a supporting cast member, make him important to the plot, give him relationships to the other characters, put him through an actual character arc and establish his relationships with other people on the cast, ingratiate him with the audience, and then slowly you're like, well, the original main character is sort of retiring. He's at the end of his story, and he's going to kind of step aside for the moment to be more of a mentor. And now the new guy's in, and it's a smooth transition, So I don't mind the idea of this. They're introducing, they're obviously trying to push Unica, I think, as this sort of new character, important character. Hopefully that pans out. And now finally, the weirdest thing of all, like it literally looks like a meme. It doesn't look real. The final Guilty Gear character, of season 4, Lucy from Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Why am I hiccuping all of a sudden? So, this is weird. If you haven't been keeping up, Guilty Gear has never done guest characters. They have never done them before. One, because I don't think they were a big enough franchise to warrant to make anyone, like, mind you, so when a guest shows up in a game, it's generally because it's mutually beneficial for both parties involved. A guest character in a game like Guilty Gear Xrd, whose original version, Xrd Sign, sold 90,000 copies, doesn't make any sense. For Strive? Yeah, actually. There's an audience of people to promote your thing to with Strive. From a business perspective, makes more sense. The other hurdle is that Guilty Gear is just a hyper-stylized series. It is very tough to take a character from anything else and make them look natural in Guilty Gear's world. The fashion, the aesthetic, the colors, the environments and the architecture is so unique and one of a kind that you can't just toss someone in. You could maybe do something like take an existing character and like Guilty Gearify them and make them fit into that world. But just taking and transferring them 1-to-1 is, it would look very weird. Series like, KOF, Street Fighter, Tekken, those can fit a lot of characters because their worlds are a lot more just, it's like contemporary martial arts action settings, You can take, that's why King of Fighters worked so well as a crossover to kind of, dude, I always forget. It's not condense. What the hell is that word? Not condense. It's not collate. I always forget this word. Dude, I'm going to look this up. Let me look a synonym for collate. It's like to combine things. You're going to come along with me on this. It's a C word, isn't it? Not condense. Shit. I'm going to pause the podcast right now. Consolidate. It was consolidate. Consolidate. It's easy to consolidate series like Art of Fighting and Fatal Fury and sort of into the same world, right? It's, Akuma is a little wacky for Tekken, but they put in he's not so crazy, There's been demons in the series before. And actually, no, there've been other monster people. He's not even that weird for Tekken. And they also put in the work to actually make him a part of the world. So he feels very natural. There's a lot of people There's a lot of people who think of Akuma as being like a Tekken character, and you know what? He kind of is. He is a part of that world and that story. So what was I saying? Right. So consolidate. That is the word that I said. Why did I think that wasn't the word that I said? It appeared to me for some reason. I'm stupid. So it's hard to find a character that really fits in there. Lucy is a weird one. There aren't a lot that would make sense. The only one that really made sense is someone from like Blaze Blue, you know? You could conceivably do Ragna, you know? Ragna from Blaze Blue. Lucy is weird for a couple reasons. Number one, she's from an anime that's like 2 years old. And mind you, Cyberpunk Edgerunners was very well received. People liked that show a lot, okay? I get it. I never watched it. I have no attachment to the character. This deal must have been finalized a while back, right? Maybe it made more sense a year ago. It's just weird to go, oh, really? This is Guilty Gear's version of when Negan showed up in Tekken. That's a weird crossover. Because, like, I don't know. If you didn't know that it was Negan from Tekken, maybe he wouldn't be that strange, because he is just like a guy with a baseball bat. But I don't know, man, something about it is just funny. Something about it's just really funny. The crossover is strange. If I didn't know who Lucy was, I could maybe see her fitting into the Guilty Gear world visually. It helps that she is from a series whose visual style lends very easily to the cel-shaded anime look of Guilty Gear. So that makes it a little less dissonant. I don't know if they didn't show off any concept art. It was just like an official render of Lucy. Or it might have been like a new piece of art. I'm not sure. But it was like clearly like in the anime's style. I don't know if they are going to be making modifications to her design to make her fit a little better. You know, are they going to give her 20 belts? Who knows? But it is weird. It is a weird pick. Am I upset about it? Not necessarily. I don't have the right to be upset because my character got in the game. Slayer is in the game. I am satisfied. I am happy. I don't have to whine about anything anymore, right? I have my character. I've got my guy. So anything else that shows up is just, okay, well, are other people excited for this? And some people were. Not a lot of people. Not a lot of people were excited. There were other Guilty Gear characters that people wanted to see. The biggest one was Jam, obviously. Would I have preferred Jam over a fucking Cyberpunk character? Yeah, I think I would have. Even if it would mean that I have to listen to Jam voice lines, I probably would. I think I would prefer just another Guilty Gear character coming back, because Guilty Gear has such a strong roster. As it stands, it's probably the weirdest part of an otherwise pretty good-looking season of content. Season of characters. She looks very out of place. It's strange. I guess as we get closer to her release, we will see what happens. We'll see what she looks like, how she plays like. Hey, maybe she'll be cool. I don't know. I mean, at this point, I would have preferred another original character, you know? I can see... So here's the thing. Now that this is season 4 of Strive. Strive has made them a lot of money. It's their best-selling, in-house developed, self-published game. I can see maybe one more season of DLC, which you would have to go... Those like Jam, Robokai would have to make it in there, right? I don't know about Robokai. I would like Robokai. There's not too many other people. If you're going to do 4 more characters, I genuinely wouldn't mind like Jam, Robokai, two newcomers, right? maybe make one of them a guest character. I don't know. Make them fucking make them make it a Kuma. Yeah, put a Kuma in Guilty Gear. He would probably be really cool in Guilty Gear. I'm not gonna lie. Just a character like, or I don't know, fucking Heihachi, Answer, Raven. There's lots of characters who could come back, right? That I'm forgetting about, right? You could do like Jam, Heihachi, Raven, or Robo-Kai, one of those. I think that would be cool. I wouldn't mind that at all. I only really see it going to like 5 seasons, though. It just seems like, in terms of support, that's how long these games typically get supported, right? And the thing is, when you look at the stuff that ArcSys has out now, right? And they don't really have anything on the horizon in terms of new projects. They've got Strive, and Strive's entering its 4th season of support. They have Grand Blue, which has been like definitely reinvigorated by the Rising update, which they're sort of treating as a sequel. Kind of like a second wind for the games. I can imagine them doing a couple more years of support, like maybe 4, 5 seasons. Who knows? That game's going to be massive by the time they're done with it. I could see them doing at least one more season after the second one. Because I think it's actually starting to get a little bit of a revival in popularity, which is cool. Cool for them. What does, Dragon Ball FighterZ is done. Strive is in its latter half of life. Grand Blue is trucking along, but it's not a new thing. It's a revision for a game that came out fucking before the pandemic. Came out in like 2019. ArcSys doesn't have anything that they've announced that's coming up on the horizon, and things are starting, they're getting a little long in the tooth. And so you have to wonder, how long are they gonna, what's their next thing? How long do we have until the next ArcSys announcement? I imagine that before anything else happens with Guilty Gear, any other game or anything like that, they're probably going to do whatever the last season of DLC is. If it's season 4, season 5, they're going to let that sit for at least 2 years, probably with some balance patches. And then they're going to announce that something is in the works, if anything happens at all, like the next project for Team Red. I imagine that they probably want to keep Guilty Gear going because Strive was so reinvigorating for the franchise, and it would be a little weird to suddenly abandon it and not make another Guilty Gear game for 2 or 3 projects. Just something, just make another something. If it's a mobile game, if it's a something else, who knows? If it's another Overture, just something with the property to capitalize on the fact that they have a ton of fans. And clearly there are a lot of people who... I just got distracted by something. Clearly there are a lot of people who would be interested in... That was what I was going to say. Clearly, Daisuke is interested in continuing the story and keeping the characters going. And, right, I talked about the passing of the torch stuff. There's a future ahead for the story and all that. So Guilty Gear is probably locked in for... They're going to do something with it. But in terms of their other stuff, I'd like to see something done with BlazBlue. Apparently there's some mobile game that is in development that got announced by, I believe, some Chinese developer, earlier today. Again, I wouldn't mind seeing a BlazBlue versus Guilty Gear or something like that, some kind of crossover thing, just something, right? Probably near the tail end of Strive support, we will likely see some sort of announcement for something that is not Guilty Gear related, right? something that is not Guilty Gear related, because they don't want to, you know, I don't know what I'm doing clapping my hand like that. They don't want to step on the current game that they're still like seeing out. So they'll probably pass it off. I can see like, you know, maybe next year, like late next year, we'll get some kind of news on the next project they've got going on. A new licensed game, who knows, you know? People want like a One Piece game or a Dragon Ball FighterZ 2. That's up to Bandai Namco though. I would love a Bleach game. A lot of people want them to do some kind of shonen thing, you know. People want them to make a JoJo game. Those are the ones that, you know, would make me go gaga. But that's that's my prediction. I think that around like late 2025, we'll probably see something. Maybe early 26, we'll see some sort of news, some sort of announcement for the next actual Arxis project. It'll be non-Guilty Gear, and then like 2 or 3 years later, we'll get an announcement about a new Guilty Gear thing. Who knows? Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I think that's all I've got to say. I continue to plug away on my video, which should be out before the end of the month. Premiere is really giving me a hard time with it, which is awesome. I don't know why. It's just giving me a hard time and being it does not want to cooperate with me for some reason on this video. But I'm powering through it. I'm actually taking out a decent chunk of it per day. So expect to see it before the end of the month. Check out my Patreon. Do I put that in the description? I think I do. If you've listened this far, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for listening to me ramble. If you have a question, feel free to leave it down in the comments below, but please phrase it in the form of a question, because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. I have been Taigen, horribly sunburnt, my pasty vampire ass, and I am going to go probably eat something. I'm hungry. Later.